I wanted to dedicate this video to explain to you that if you want to move to the US to get a job, then what are some options? Your ability to earn in pretty much any field is a function of two things, right? So how much you earn, it depends on your skills and your location. Now, I speak a lot about the skill set development, but this is also an important component if you want to increase your earning. And if you are prioritizing one place over another, I would say US is probably the best place to be as an IT professional. And even if you don't want to leave your country and move to the US for long term, even getting experience for 1 to 2 years in the US, it goes a long way in terms of your professional career development. So I wanted to dedicate this video to explain to you that if you want to move to the US to get a job, then what are some options and how should you navigate it? Again, I'm not an immigration attorney, so this video is just based on my experience and the people I've spoken with and spent time with. So take it with a grain of salt. This is not an immigration advice since I'm not an attorney, but just wanted to share some thoughts based on my experience. When people want to come to the US, there are different ways. There's family-based immigration, there is lottery in some countries, and investment-based options. But when it comes to coming here as a professional, there are usually two main paths. So let me just speak about these two. So the first one, which a lot of people prefer, is H-1B. So this is work visa. If a company here wants to sponsor employment for you, they file H-1B, which is a work visa, and then you come here as a professional. The other option is that you come here as a student. So that visa is called F1. Let me speak a little bit about the pros and cons of both. A lot of people prefer H-1B because you have a job, you just come here and you're earning from day one. There's no investment required. So this is definitely an ideal scenario, but it's very difficult to get a job as an H-1B when you're outside. So I won't prioritize this much. I think a much better route would be to come as an F1 student. Now, when you come for an F1 student, the good thing is that your odds of coming here is much higher, and it is a much easier route than coming on H1B. But the downside is that you have to put in some initial investment because you have to come here as a student, and you have to pay tuition fees, your living expenses, and your ability to work is also limited. So these are some pros and cons. Overall, I think coming here as an F1 student is a much better option. Let me just try to explain the approach you should take if you are coming as an H1B on work visa and also on F1 student. So a lot of people, what they try to do when they try to come on H1B is that they start applying for US jobs. And that approach almost never works. The reason is that when you're applying for a job online, which is a US based, there is always a question, a checkmark box there, which asks, do you have work authorization to work in the US? And when you answer negatively to that question, it doesn't matter how good your experience is, your resume will be rejected just automatically. And there are people who just wrongly mark that as yes, but at a later stage, whenever that information is released that you're not eligible to work in the US, then most of the companies won't accept your resume. And just to give you an example of why that's the case, why it's very difficult for companies to hire an H-1B who is outside, let me give you an example. So we were once hiring for a data scientist. We got a lot of resumes, we shortlisted them, and one of the top candidates, he was based in Sweden. And when I was looking at his resume, it looks like he has never been into the US. So we reached out and asked him, hey, you have checked this box that you have work authorization in the US, but how do you have the work authorization? And he said he does not, and he's willing to come on H-1B if our company is willing to sponsor H-1B for him. But logistically, if you look at it, if it's a smaller company who's trying to bring in H-1B, it's just a lot of hassle and a lot of paperwork and a lot of legal work for them to go through. So they will avoid it. For the bigger companies who are actually hiring a lot of H-1Bs, it's very difficult to sponsor a new H-1B for someone who is outside. And the reason is, coming back to the example I was giving. So it was around June when we were hiring for this position. And even if you're willing to sponsor H-1B for this candidate, the H-1B applications go in April of each year. And you have to just apply on 1st of April. You cannot apply before. So this is when you apply. And when you apply, then it goes for lottery. And the chances here are at best 50-50. And even if the application is picked up in the lottery and then it is approved, then the person cannot start till October 1st. So we are in June. Even if you sponsor H-1B for them, for that person, we have to wait for April next year to file for that. And then October 1st for the person to actually come in and join our team. Most companies will never wait for that long. Most companies won't even wait for 6 months. So what is the option there? Don't apply for regular companies. Only try to apply for consulting companies. There are a lot of consulting companies whose whole business model is this, that they try to find good, shiny candidates across the world, and then they sponsor H-1B for them. And when they come in the US, then they place them on different contract roles. So try to find some good consulting companies. There are a lot of companies which are consulting, which are based of India. So if you're in India, then it's a good thing for you. You can try to find a lot of companies who are looking for good talented data scientists, machine learning engineers, and then approach them. But if you're not based in India, then a lot of these companies might not consider you because there's already a good talent pool existing in India, which they just tap into. So in that case, you should try to reach out to companies which are based in the US. Some examples are Selby Jennings, there is Robert Half, there is EPAM. There are a lot of good companies. So search for those and then just apply for that because they are actually interested in that route of they'll interview you. If they think you are a good candidate, then they'll take care of the rest of the process. Don't apply to regular companies. So that's for the H-1B. Now coming to the F1 student, which I think is the preferred route most of you should be taking. When it comes to applying for F1, there are just two components to it mainly. So one is admission into a university, and then there is visa. This is relatively much easier than getting the visa. This is the hard part. Now, when it comes to admissions, US has more than 5,000 universities. Not everyone knows name of all the 5,000 universities. And there are some very small universities who are willing to take in pretty much any candidate which comes their way. So picking the university, at the time of picking the university, be careful. Try not to apply for like the low tier universities, like very small. And the bigger universities like Harvard and Stanford, they might not take you anyway. So try to focus on the mid-tier universities. And I always encourage people to apply for state universities because most of the time they are much more affordable and also have a good brand name of the state. So the likelihood of you getting the visa is usually much better. A lot of people don't want to go this route because it takes a lot of initial investment. The good thing is that once you come on F1, then for the first 2 semesters, most likely you won't be allowed to work besides on-campus jobs. So you should be willing to spend the first 2 months of tuition, which in most likelihood would be around $10,000 to $15,000 plus your living expenses. So this is what you would have to pay for the first 2 semesters. But after the first 2 semesters, and some universities even allow you to start working part-time in the field of your specialty after university's approval, after 1 to 2 semesters. So part-time in the field of in the field of study, you can start working. And this is like perfect. So this is called CPT. And from here, you can actually like start your career. And there are a lot of contract jobs which allow you to work part-time. And this is like the perfect way to start your professional career while you are studying. And this is fully legal. Once you are graduated, then since most of these data science, ML related courses, software engineering courses, they come under STEM. So this gives you 3 years of OPT, which means that you can work for 3 years. And this is usually enough for you to develop your career and then you can go back. If you want to stay here, then there are options to convert to H-1B or green card. Now, in terms of cost, yes, there is this upfront investment, but your likelihood of getting an admission, you can always get admission. I think it's just a matter of what kind of university, what's the best kind of university you can get acceptance into, and so that you have a good chance of getting the visa. But all this pipeline is in your hand pretty much, though it requires some upfront investment. But as soon as you get some paid part-time CPT, then you can easily pay for tuition and all other expenses. This is nothing. This initial investment is nothing when you consider the kind of returns you can get. So I hope you find this video useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Again, I'm not an immigration attorney, so take this with a grain of salt.